What gives you the right to look at us disabled people and you get to establish who the cool ones are? You could ask any of my pals whenever I go out. Like, I cannot. I might be a Scotsman, but I cannot handle my drink, man. I cannot. The less disabled people around, the better.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to Jordan Jarrett-Bryan's, the coolest disabled in the world. Both of those are me, by the way. Yes, I'm Jordan Jarrett-Bryan, and I'm the coolest disabled in the world. I can't quite hear him, but I can see the smile and the grinning from my first guest speaker. I'm going to come to him in. I don't know why he's laughing, because he knows it's true. But just before we get to my fantastic guest, thanks very much for joining the show once again. This show on this podcast, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to be inviting some of my fantastic friends and some new friends, people who are amazing, doing amazing things, and discussing all the fantastic things in their life they are doing. And let's just chat about it. Let's just kick it. Let's have a chat. Let's have a laugh. Let's have a cry. All that good stuff. And by the end of our conversation, I will decide if their coolness matches up to mine. Spoiler alert, it won't. But you know what? Let's give it a try anyway and see how we get on with this. Oh, and by the way, all my guests will be disabled as well. Cool. So I want to get on to my first guest this week, because he's someone that I've known for a very, very long time. Very talented young man, very, very good looking young man, very lovable and very kind young man. He's looking around at the moment. He's thinking, he's talking about me. I'm talking about him. He's a good friend of mine. I'm glad he's on the pod this week. I want to say a big, big shout out to my boy, Martin Dougan. Martin, what are you saying? Talk to me, brother. Talk to me.
First of all, Jordan, you can fuck off if you think you're the coolest disabled in the world. That is like my introduction to your show. You knew that was coming.
It's good to see you too.
There's absolutely no way you're getting away with that, pal. No way in a million years. Coolest disabled. Anyway,
what is it a lie? Is that a lie? Am I lying?
Yes, mate, yeah. What gives you the right to look at us disabled people and you get to establish who the cool ones are?
Well, you know, I'm saying it. I'm putting it out there. It's for you to tell me that I'm talking absolute rubbish. That's your job, right? That's your job. Right?
By the way,
you will?
Aside, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the show, mate. I'm excited.
No, mate.
I'm excited.
It's always
good
a pleasure
to chat with you.
There's so many things I want to get into with you, Martin. But first of all, I'm going to ask all my guests on this podcast, tell me, out of 10, what do you think your coolness number is?
Yeah. Changes by the day.
Just now.
If I right now, my coolness. Well, it's a bit difficult when I'm with you, Jordan. Do you know what I mean? If I'm sitting there and I'm sitting with you, I'm usually thinking of a 10 coolness, but guilty by association up at the top there.
It rubs off,
but, yeah. You know. My mum used to always say an expression: "If you fly with the crows, you get shot with the crows," and that's how I feel when it comes with you. But I would say if I was going to average out my coolness when it comes to myself and my disability and everything else, I would give myself a solid 8.
Okay, we'll
that's
come back
the number I would. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna revisit.
Tell me the look on your face. I can tell by the look on your face that you're either surprised, disgusted, like you don't understand.
No comment. We'll come back to this later on. We'll revisit that number. That's fine. You're saying you're 8, and that's fine. You're like, you can say whatever number you want. That's your number. That's fine. But Mike, listen. There's so many things to talk about with you, right? I've known you now, 2011? 2010.
2010, mate.
Our journey goes
14
back.
years.
14 years, man.
Yeah.
It's a long time. Worked together many times too. Do you remember the first time we met and what your first impressions of me were?
Yes, I do remember the first time we met. Both of us had significantly less grey hair. I remember that. Yes. I remember that you had a little buzz cut. You never had this long hair that you had before. You were all baby-faced, looking fresh. And you walked in with one of the Dick Van Dyke for Mary Poppins hats on. Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
You had like one of those old men beanie hats on. I remember this about you because somehow you thought at that point in time
it was cool.
It must have been 2010. I don't know. Maybe people were wearing them back then, but I can't remember anybody else having one. But you definitely did.
Who knows?
And my first impression of you was, if you were asking me about the first 10 minutes, I don't know what your recollection of this is, but I remember. Do you remember me asking you if I could use your pen?
Yes, I do. I do.
So we were sat in this Channel 4 room and we were getting trained to be reporters for the London 2012 Paralympics. You walked in, we did the pleasantries, the small talk, and then I came unprepared. I didn't have a pen, and I think you had a spare one. Or whatever, yeah. And I think you had a spare one, and then I says, "Oh, Jordan, can I borrow that pen?" And you looked at me straight in the eye, didn't even like break a light to me, and you just went, "Nah, fuck off."
Is that what I said?
And I genuinely thought, right, in the whole room, because it was me, Alex Brooker, Rachel Latham, like Andy Stevenson, Adi Adebowle was sat there at the time as well, and the whole room went silent because you were that good at it. And I went, and I'd already grabbed the pen because I'd assumed that you were going to say yes. So I quickly just skited the pen back across the table. And then you started laughing and says, "I'm fucking with you, I'm only kidding you on." And from that moment on, I kind of knew that I was going to hate you for a long time. I knew that your brain was in a dark place and that you like to mess with people. So I set myself up for it, really. And I've hated you ever since.
No, that was genesis of our friendship. So just a little bit of context to our viewers and our listeners. So as you mentioned there, we both met. We were both part of the, what was it, a scheme initiative by Channel 4 to try and find talent. That's the right, talent search ahead of the 2012 Paralympic Games. A big part of Channel 4's pitch was they wanted to have, I think it was like 80% of their outward facing talent to be disabled. But you guys were a year ahead of me because I didn't know about this because I was playing wheelchair basketball in Italy. And that was the time they put the search out. So you guys had been doing this. I actually missed the whole thing. I came back one off season, Martin, and a friend of mine I met up in the off season said to me, "Oh, I've had a meeting with someone at Channel 4 about something unrelated. They've just finished their search for the new talent for the 2012 Paralympic Games." My friend, said to the person who was meeting at Channel 4, "Look, I know a guy that I think will be really, really good." The guy was like, "Oh, he's missed the deadline. It's too late. Look, trust me. Get him to do a show reel now. We'll get it in. We'll have a look at it. We'll see what we can do." Did it, sent it in. And and I met you and Alex Brooker and Adi. Well, I knew Adi before that, but Rachel. So that was our first meeting. And what was that? What was that experience like for you in terms of, because it was a new experience for all of us. This is TV. This is a home Paralympics coming up. What do you remember of that time? Kind of going through that training for that 2 years.
Oh, I mean, I think that when I look back at that time, I've got mixed emotions about it. So when it comes to the actual games themselves, it was amazing. Like London 2012 was our doorway into this industry that we work in now. But the actual sporting event, being at the Paralympic Village at the time in East London, you know, and being at the events all day was fantastic. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I think for me and you, I was part of the minority sports, so I reported on like things like boccia, weightlifting, sitting volleyball, and other sports. Table tennis was one of them as well. So I was kind of like across the board. And then in the morning, I was the weatherman for the breakfast show. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
So, but what I will say is that I felt like the actual build up to it with Channel 4, as much as I was really grateful for the experience, it was quite a tough environment. I don't know if you remember it the same way, but it had become very competitive, and we had to learn a lot in a short space of time. A lot of us, I was living in London and my family were up in Glasgow. Like, I wasn't seeing my daughter very much at that point in time. So when I look back as a young 23, 24-year-old, I felt like it was like a whirlwind, really. And it was like a very quick way into the industry. I enjoyed it, but I think the thing that I find like that really sticks in my mind is although me and you are really close off the back of it, it's a shame that we don't really see the other guys that much or hear from, because I'm not saying that friendships weren't great, but I think that environment caused us all to be a bit too competitive with each other at times.
Yeah,
and we didn't always get along, like everybody in the team, because of that, because that's what they wanted, was to create a kind of competitive, fast-paced environment. So that's kind of my thoughts going back on it, and it's not all negative. Most of it's positive. It got me my opportunity to work in this industry, and I met some of the best people, including yourself, off the back of it. And I'm truly grateful because of that I managed to be what I consider to be the turning point when it comes to disability representation in the media. Although it could be better still, that was the catalyst. I think it was the catalyst, and I like to believe, because my ego's massive, because I give myself an 8 in coolness. I like to believe that I played a small part in that, like in terms of helping the final event sort of take place, which was the Paralympics in London that we all know and have fond memories of.
So as someone, Martin, that still works in TV, by the way, you're still smashing it, because you after those games, I was fortunate enough to kind of stay within the Channel 4 stable. You went to the BBC and you've been working there ever since. So it's not like your career fell off. You've been smashing it at the BBC. But when you watch television and you see content now, do you see anything that was on anywhere near the scale or the level of impetus of disabled talent drive as what we saw in that kind of 2010 to 2013 kind of window? What's the landscape of media? You watch TV now, you consume it. Yeah. What's the landscape in terms of disabled people and opportunities now for you?
Dire, to be honest. I think that's the word that I use every time. The issue is that as a disabled person, as somebody who uses a wheelchair full time with my disability, like when every 4 years they roll out the disabled athletes for the Paralympics and everybody wants to pay attention to these athletes for 2 weeks every 4 years or pretend that they care about it, all these media companies. The problem is that when you're an everyday person with a disability, people just expect you to be a Paralympian. So that's always one of the questions that comes your way. And then I feel like what happened naturally was when London 2012 happened, there was a spike in the amount of people with disabilities that were being represented in different ways within the TV industry. And naturally now, that was a long time ago, so there's been a huge drop-off. And I think the problem is we've not been able to maintain it, really. I was hoping that Paris would sort of bring that spike back up again, but it doesn't feel that way. Because I thought, we had Rio 2016, which was, in Brazil, time difference is an issue for people in the UK to watch all the sports. Sometimes it's not as close to home. And then we had a COVID Games in Tokyo, which people over this side of the world didn't really see lots of because of the time difference again. So I was hoping that Paris would kind of be quite similar to the way that London was, because it's just next door to the UK. It's on our time zone. There's loads of great Paralympics GB athletes, representing their country at that games. I think we broke all the records actually in Paris Paralympics GB, so it was a huge games. But actually, Hannah Cockcroft said it when I interviewed her once for BBC. Her line to me was, "Don't forget about us." After she had won a gold medal in Paris, that was what she said. And that always stuck with me, really, because why would a gold medal winning, athlete, Hannah Cockcroft, known in homes all over the country, why would she have to say something like that? And that sentence tells you everything from Hannah, that she thinks the same, is that we just get brought out the broom cupboard every 4 years and have this event, and then they don't talk about us again.
I tend to agree, Martin. I think Paralympic sport has never found, and Channel 4 have never found a way to really ensure that between cycles, Paralympic sport, disability sport is still somewhere front and center. I think, though, across broader TV, we go away from sports, I think TV is doing a better job. Before we kind of finish with the whole Paralympic thing, we had some really good nights out, right? We've had some really good nights out, yeah. Some messy ones. Some messy ones.
I actually get, do you know what? Actually, I've got to that age now where I actually get the fear in my chest. Do you know when you start to talk about the fear of actually, because I transport myself back to the times with the amount of alcohol we drank and the chats that we had, and already I've got a hangover just thinking about it. Like, it's brutal, but I love them.
They were good nights, but can you remember any? Because the ones that I can remember are the ones where you were more smashed than me, and I'm carrying you, and you're in your chair, and you're taking an hour to kind of get to where we're going. It's standard.
Yeah, mate, that is. That you could ask any of my pals whenever I go out. Like, I cannot. I might be a Scotsman, but I cannot handle my drink, man. I cannot. But the thing is, I'm a goer. So, like,
oh mate, you're a goer. You're definitely a goer, mate.
So I'll continue drinking, thinking that the world's fine, but everybody else sees the absolute car crash that's happening. I just don't sense it. But I don't. The thing is, I remember we went on some great nights out after the Paralympics. We had some great times at that point because we were still kind of associated with Channel 4, and you used to put me up in your flat sometimes. If I was in London, I'd come over and stay over at yours, and they were pretty wild. I think we ended up in Soho quite a bit, if I remember right.
You dirty.
But I do remember do you remember we went on a night out in Rio? Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do. That was an epic night.
And we ended up out with the American basketball team. Do you remember they were there and they had all their medals and stuff? And we're in this weird. We knew we find ourselves in some weird places together, mate. But we were in this random bit in Rio, and it was like a weird shack that we were in, and it was the equivalent to like £1 for a big beer or whatever, which is never ever ever a good idea when I'm around, because I'm just like greedy as heck, man. Like, give me all the beers, give me all.
Listen,
of them.
Martin, that was the summer I stopped drinking. 2016 was in Rio. Yeah, when I got back from Rio, I said to myself,
"Not surprised."
Just to be clear, I didn't have a problem. Like, it wasn't like it. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I decided that I didn't like alcohol and I wasn't going to drink it anymore. That was the summer I remember. But one thing I want to ask you though, Martin, as well, is as someone that you've had a really good social life. I've got so many friends of mine who have different disabilities, and many are in chairs, and I'm always fascinated to know if it's an easier going out experience for them, if they're somewhere where they're the only disabled, or if they're somewhere where the majority of people are disabled. Do you know what I mean? For you, which one do you find the more stress-free experience?
The less disabled people around, the better. That is my absolute, like, there's no negotiating on that. Because naturally, I think, right, is that let's say, for example, it depends on the disability as well. Like, if you walk into a pub and I'm sat there, I don't feel any threat, right? And I mean that in the nicest way possible, right? But if I see a good-looking guy in a wheelchair coming in, I'm like, who the fuck?
I can't have this.
Who do you think you are, mate? Did you not get the memo? Like, get the fuck
There's room for one of us in this town, and it ain't going to be you.
It's not going to be you, pal. And I will throw down. I will CP punch you in the throat. But I feel like some of the best times that I've had on nights out, because both of us played basketball, so my whole sort of the way that I approach my disability and the way that I think about it was formed and built through being part of a wheelchair basketball team. And the people that I decided to spend time with were also in wheelchairs, a lot of them were. So, like, I'm grateful for that, and I had some of the best times, but genuinely, the less the better, because I feel like people expect other disabled people to speak to each other when they're on like a night out. So I know my mates would be like, "Oh, what if if a woman walks in, if a woman struts in with a scooter?"
I know what you're going to say.
They'll go, "Oh, Martin, there's your missus." Like, they'll just jump on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, like, there's two reasons for this. I don't like other disabled people being in my space socially, because I like to be the person that's distinctive. So I don't really need you there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want everybody looking at us like we're on a day out. Do you know what I mean? Because, they must have let the wheelchair ones out today. Do you know what I mean? Like a whole group. Like, who wants that? And then also, my mates are savages with things like this. So I know for a fact as soon as they saw somebody in a wheelchair, they go, "Oh, Martin, look, it's your brother, or it's your missus," or they encourage that person to come into my space, and I don't want it. So
I hear it.
And that is genuinely my thoughts on it.
No, I appreciate it, man. As I mentioned earlier on, you are a dad. You've got a beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
I remember when I first met you and you told me you had a daughter. I was really, really. One thing I loved about you was that how close you are to your daughter, and you've always been.
Yeah.
As I've known you, very, very. She's been very important to you. Obviously, she's your daughter. Tell me about her. Tell everyone about your daughter, and does she think she's got a cool dad? Because presenter, wheelchair basketball guy, ambassador for charities. Like, come on, Scotland's finest.
I think that all of those things you listed are valid, but I also think that Jessica could not give two flying fucks about what I do. Really, that's my honest answer. She's 14 years old now, by the way, so she's like practically, a grown adult. Scarily. And so she's like, all she really focuses on is her pals, and she just wants to hang out with her mates. But she's striving to become a professional dancer, which I think that she'll achieve. So it's been a real sort of. We've been following Jess on this journey since she was like 5, where she's been dancing and building. And there's a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of understanding, a lot of conversations have to take place, whether she's had a good day or a bad day, competitions, all that kind of stuff. So the downside to that is that when you've got somebody like that, you've got to sit and watch them compete. Right, but the problem is you've got to watch everybody else's kids compete as well. And it is fucking horrendous. I hate it. See when she goes, "Oh, Dad, I've got a festival coming up. I want to punch myself in the face." I'm like, I can't do this. This is terrible. So I hope
500 other children I've got to watch dancing their routine.
Other people's kids. I don't care about other people's kids. They're feral. Do you know what I mean? I just care about Jess. So like, I hope that. I don't care whether Jessica, what she thinks about me, but one day I hope that she realises that all that time and commitment that we put in, that she's going to have to pay it forward at one point. So when I'm an old man, she's going to be footing the bill for the bloody care home, I tell you that. And you think I'm kidding? I ain't. It's all, she's paying it forward, I'm telling you.
Especially these times now, Martin, where old people ain't going to get a pension. Or they're cutting the pension, so mate, someone's got to pay for us when we get old, mate.
Jessica's my meal ticket, man. I'm telling you. But no, I think for me, like when it comes to being a dad, that was the most important thing. So, as you know, like we've been really busy over the past 12 years, you and I, trying to establish ourselves in this industry, trying to fight for something that I feel like we're making very little ground. But we're trying, and we've done really well individually, but we've always done it with purpose. And with that comes a lot of time and commitment and time away from family and travel and all sorts of stuff. So it is hard to balance being a dad and working in this industry as a reporter or a journalist. You get all the good things, all the good jobs, but that means time away for your family. So that's been a big juggle. And thankfully, Jessica's always been quite understanding about that.
No, that's dope. That's cool, man. There's 2 questions, Martin, I ask all my guests. I'm going to come to shortly. Just before I come to those 2 questions, I didn't know this, but apparently you traveled the world, or you went around Fiji hike. Is that have I got that correct?
Yeah. So what's your question? So are you asking me whether I did that or not?
No, well, I'm assuming you did do it. So my question was going to be, what was it like? And, there's so many campaigns now we see for disabled people and accessibility in, transport. What was it like traveling around these countries or around Fiji as someone with CP?
It was amazing. Like, so, bit of context with this actually. So this is a good disability story, really, when you look at it from the industry point of view and from an individual's point of view. So we were going to cover the deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. So I got this job from BBC on Newsround to go to the Amazon rainforest and cover deforestation. So 3 months. So what happens is they give you a month or so to plan and to create, like, to get case studies, people to interview and think about the stories that you want to tell when you're out there and what are we going to do out there. So you've got a month of pre-planning before you actually go out. Anyway, it was established quite quickly that was a very unsafe place for somebody in a wheelchair to go, because people were getting killed due to this deforestation. And don't even get me started on the pink dolphins. Weird. Nobody wants to be anywhere near pink dolphins in the Amazon. They go pink. They're actually translucent, but they go pink when they're excited.
Interesting. Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a story for another day. But okay. But so what happened was one of my colleagues had seen an article, so that got cancelled. But we still wanted to go away and cover a big story. But one of the stories that weren't covered that much was the rise in sea levels in the South Pacific due to climate change. So what editor straight away decided, yeah, go for it. And we made a wee stop off in Australia before that to talk about, I think it was bushfires in Australia. So we went to Australia first, did bushfires, and then spent 3 weeks in Fiji, meeting up with families and people that have been affected by climate change over there. And what was interesting about that part of the world was that for somebody like me in a wheelchair to be in Fiji, it was really, really difficult. Like, it was a real challenge because, as you can imagine, it's got beautiful scenery, beautiful beaches. A lot of it's forest and it's very dense and it's quite difficult. So it was me and two other producers, two female producers, and we had 2 cameras with us. We had drones, we had everything, like, kit, and it was a real slog. Like, we travelled all over Fiji at that point in time. So it was a real sort of a real education for all of us. Do you know what I mean? Because as you know, wheelchairs and beaches and grass and mud and anything like that is just like it's difficult. It's difficult. And then you've got time constraints, you've got deadlines to make, you've got all sorts of things. So that was the difficult side of it. But what the really good side of it is that we met kids that were being impacted by hurricanes, being impacted by rising sea levels. We spoke about the coral reef, which is the 3rd largest in the South Pacific, the coral reef that's in Fiji, and what they're doing to save it. It felt like really, really important work. Mm-hmm. And what was really good is because it was for Newsround, we met young kids that were sort of showing all these initiatives to make the world a better place, who had to move to higher grounds because their villages were underwater now, completely submerged underwater.
Wow.
And what that kind of taught me was that actually we talk about climate change in this side of the world quite a lot, but we don't really see it that much. We don't really feel it impacting us, really. It doesn't impact our daily lives, but these kids, they did. Do you know what I mean? And that was the first time that I'd really sort of took stock. But then just to end on that point, the fact that the BBC were comfortable enough just to go, well, Martin will be able to take care of himself in Fiji, and he's the man that's going to go out there and collect all this information and give the kids in the UK a window to the world about how other kids are being impacted. Like, I'll be forever grateful to the BBC for that, because they trusted me with that story, and it didn't matter whether they knew that there was going to be obstacles coming in my way, but because of the level of communication that I had with my editor and the execs and stuff, they also knew that if there was any obstacles, we would find a way past it. So they slept at night knowing that I was in Fiji, knowing that I had all these obstacles, but the job would get done. So that was the good part.
No, that's super dope, man, because I do a lot of work with organizations that try to educate and train broadcasters and channels, excuse me, and executives about diversifying in disability, that space in particular, right? And people who have disabilities aren't stupid. They're aware there are things that they can't do, or things they probably can do, but are going to put them in some kind of risk, right? So we're not stupid, but the fact that you had a broadcaster and you had somebody there that said, no, I think Martin can do this job. Him being in a chair will provide challenges. I'm sure that you talked through what they may be. It's okay. We'll navigate that. We'll work. We'll find a way to work through that. It's some kind of progress. I think we can kind of see that. I don't know, spread out more so. And I think it is spreading out across television and the media industry more so.
Yeah, and I think what me and you have managed to do really well, Jordan, is that I think that we've managed to have honest conversations with ourselves and the people that make these decisions. So, like, you speak to your editor, you speak to your boss, and you quite clearly set the boundaries out for what you can and what you can't do, and what you're happy to do and what you're not happy to do. When it comes to the disability side, what language you're happy with, what you're not happy with, so that you can get the message across. I think that's always going to be the barrier for people when they first get into the industry, like, is that editors and execs and disabled people, everybody's too scared of the same thing, and that's saying the wrong thing.
Totally agree, man. Martin, just to wrap up, a couple questions that I want to put to you. First of all, what's your disability ick? What's the thing that just drives your goat, cheeses you off, really annoys you? Just something, that just really annoys you, just really gets you just.
Oh man,
brings out that Scottish temper.
I don't think the show is long enough, pal. I've got so many. It'd be easier for me to tell you the things that I'm happy with in the disability world, and we could wrap it up in like 2 seconds, man. How long have you got, man? I fucking get icks about everything. I get icks about myself as a disabled person. I make myself sick. Like,
no, don't say that, Martin. Don't say that, Martin. I'm not having that. No. We're not doing that. No, Martin. Come on. Jordan, you're a beautiful young man.
Let's be honest. Jordan, let's be honest. My legs make me look like there are sparrows hanging out a nest. Right?
I mean, that's true. That's true, but so what? So what?
I'm just being honest. I'll tell you about the disability. I'll tell you what the thing is that really sort of. I'll need to go through my back catalogue of things that really make me feel so fucking angry about disability. There's loads. I think when it comes to disability, the thing that really drives me nuts is when people come down to your level as a wheelchair user and try and speak eye level to you. So, like, when you meet somebody that doesn't know you, and then they like come in and they like kneel down. So that's what will happen to me quite a lot, is that people will kind of kneel down and sort of come to my level because they think that's what I want. I don't want you to come closer to me. I don't want your face to come closer to me.
Can I just say, Martin, next time I see you, you know that I'm going to come down to your level now and do that to you now. Go on, sorry, go on.
But then that was just one example. But what I get quite a lot, and I don't know if as a wheelchair user, I get this quite a lot from people, particularly from females, is they always ask if it works. When I first meet somebody.
Expand.
So, for example, like one of my best pals was seeing somebody new, and he introduced me to this lady. So I was like, "Hi, I'm Martin. Hi, I'm such and such." And then she went, "Oh, does it work?" That was the first question that she asked me as a person. Like,
that was from the gate. That was the first thing she asked you.
And do you know what? It was the very first thing off the bat. Just met her like 10 seconds before, like literally shook her hand, and that was the first thing that she asked. And actually, people go around about that question in different ways. She was very blunt and direct about it, right? But because maybe she'd had a few drinks. But that question's been asked to me loads as a disabled person by men and women. The thing that throws me off about it, and the thing that gives me the ick about it, right, is that out of everything that you have to deal with when you're somebody who uses a wheelchair, usually you can kind of find a bit of human in stuff, like depending on how people approach you, and you think, well, that person's just trying to be nice, that person's coming from a good place. It's about a lack of education. But that question I never ever understood, because you wouldn't go up to like a fellow non-disabled person and go, "Oh, does it work?" type of thing when you first meet somebody. So it's always racked my brain, like, why would someone ask that question? Like,
so
like
I've never been asked that question before in my life. And so does that happen often, or is that one occasion that one person asked it?
No, it happens often. That's what I was saying to you before.
And how do you feel?
That one, like, it never ceases to. It always surprises me when someone says it. And no, the thing is, Jordan, is that people go about things differently. So people are asking the same question, but they ask it in different ways. Do you know what I mean? So, but it's still fundamentally the same question. They want to know whether my penis works or whether it doesn't, because for some reason, before we get to the actual hello, what's your name, before we get to know people, that's the important part sometimes that people want to know about me very quickly. And I've never ever been able to understand it. I can usually put things in its place, but I can't put that in its place because it just completely, it's a left fielded question, isn't it? So like,
this is my head's blown now, because do you think people ask you that question because they think Martin is an outwardly going kind of personality and he'll be comfortable with me asking it? Do you think they ask other people, other men in chairs, that same question? You think that's almost worse than they just think, oh, Martin can take it. It's like, that's really, really quite offensive.
Yeah, see, it's not direct, why it's quite offensive. Off. Yeah, it is offensive, but then, because you know me, right, and you know that I'm quick with my words, and I can be a little bit snappy, and like, I don't hold back when it comes to saying what I really think about something if it comes to that. But in these situations, I've never really known how to respond, really, because it's so shocking. Like, I think it's so shocking that you're like, why would you ask me that question? So it always catches me off guard. So I get annoyed with myself after that, because I think, oh, I wish I had fucking said this. I wish I had said, it does work, just ask your missus. Do you know what I mean? Like, loads of stupid wee things go through your head, which you shouldn't do. But every single time I get asked it, I'm like, fuck, I should have said that. But I never do. Always get caught off guard. And I just, it's very, very personal anyway. It's a very personal sort of direct hit for a question to be asked when you don't know somebody. I've been best pals with boys since I was young, since I was born. I've still got the same best pals that I've always had from Glasgow, and none of them have asked me that question. And like, none of them have asked me any questions anywhere near that kind of level. And they know me, and they know that I'm easygoing and quite approachable, and you can usually ask me anything, and they would never do that.
It's a liberty, Martin. It's a liberty to ask that question of anybody. The answer is irrelevant, but to ask the question is a big liberty. And for someone to
why do you think so? Why do you think people would ask that question? What goes through? Let's see. What would you think? What would go through your mind? Like, where's the logic? Where would you put it?
I think people get. This is why I asked you if you think it's someone in a wheelchair thing or a Martin thing. I think people take your personality for granted. I think people take how you are and think, oh, Martin can take it. Martin's a laugh. We're having a few beers. Because they wouldn't ask another person that same question, because they know they might get a response that they don't want to get in terms of something rude back, or they might feel that person, can't quite handle the question. They think, oh, Martin's a laugh. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's really, really
he'll take it as a laugh.
He'll take it as a laugh. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. Because there's certain questions you wouldn't ask a man or a woman just out of respect and decency.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Matter, does it?
It's not. It's just really bad. Well, you've kind of answered both my questions in one there, because my second was going to be, what's the stupidest question someone's asked you regarding disability? So you've you've knocked out 2 for 1 there.
Yeah, that is it, mate. That is the one. That is my ick, and that is the dumbest question that plenty of people have asked me.
Definitely the rudest. Listen, Martin, we're going to wrap up now, but we're going to come full circle now to your 8 out of 10 standing in which you awarded yourself at the start. And listen, there's so many more questions I want to talk to you about. Run out of time. We'll definitely get you back on. But superstar, wheelchair, basketball player, a television presenter of 15 years across multiple networks. You've done stuff for Sky as well. An absolute legend on a night out, a super dad, and one of Scotland's finest. I actually think you're being very, very humble with your 8 out of 10, mate. I think you're.
Do you, Jordan? I'm surprised.
I think you're being. I mean, you're not quite me. Let's have it right. You're not quite me, right? But I'm a prick. I'm a prick.
Mate, you don't need to say it out loud. I think it every time I see you. It's fine.
But I definitely think you are definitely up there, one of the coolest disabled people in the entire world. I'm really, really blessed to have you as my friend and as a colleague. We've had some really great chats. I know you're doing some great work. You're a great inspiration and an icon. Oh, I've used the I word. I said to myself, I would never use the I word ever again to a disabled person.
I'm quite happy that you used it. I'll take it.
Well, I think you are, man. You're doing some amazing things, and I've got a lot of time for you. And I want to thank you for your time coming on the podcast today. Where can people find you and find your work, bro?
Well, you can find me on Instagram. That's my best part. So it's Martin Dougan 11 on Instagram. That's the platform I use the most. And I'm working at BBC Sport these days, producing stuff. So have a wee look on there. You might see my wee face talking about sporty things.
Indeed. Go and give Martin a follow. Go and check out his great work and be nice. That's been Martin Dougan. I'm Jordan Jarrett-Bryan. I am still the coolest disabled in the entire world. If you haven't subscribed, please go. Why are you laughing? I'm trying to do my outro and you're laughing. Please subscribe to the podcast. Give us a like and follow. All that good stuff. Martin knows that it's true. He's laughing, but he knows it's true. Until next time, we're out of it.